Deep within the cool stone walls of the ancient workshop, the world remains tucked away under a heavy blanket of velvet shadows, and the only light comes from a single small candle that flickers with a rhythmic pulse against the dark oak beams. The air is perfectly still, carrying the faint, comforting scent of charred wood, earthy soot, and the clean, dry smell of parchment waiting to be filled. There is a profound sense of safety here, a quiet space where time has slowed down to a gentle crawl, and the only sound is the soft, distant sigh of the wind through the high window. You are invited now to let your body settle deep into the softness of your blankets, to let your breath match the steady, quiet pulse of the room, and to drift away into the gentle, repetitive motions of a day built of deep, black ink and golden candlelight. Chapter 1. Beneath the cooling rafters of the quiet house, the ink maker feels the first stirrings of the morning, rising from his bed with a slow and fluid ease that feels as though he is still partly wrapped in a peaceful dream. He moves through the shadows of his room, his feet finding the solid, familiar floorboards that have been worn smooth by years of quiet footsteps. And he dresses in the dim gray light with a relaxed and steady hand. He reaches for his linen tunic, feeling the soft and slightly coarse texture of the fabric as it slides over his skin. And he fastens his belt with a slow, deliberate motion that requires no thought at all. The house is entirely silent around him, a stillness that feels like a kind and protective weight. And as he walks toward the workshop, he can hear the rhythmic ticking of a cooling hearth in the next room. He opens the heavy oak door to his workspace, and the scent of the room greets him like an old friend. A mix of dry wood and the faint, sweet smell of the resins he gathered from the forest. He finds a small piece of flint and a bit of steel, and with a steady, rhythmic motion, he strikes them together, watching the tiny sparks dance in the dark until a single flame catches the wick of a beeswax candle. A soft, golden circle of light begins to bloom and spread across the long wooden table, illuminating the rows of ceramic bowls and a heavy stone mortars that wait in the shadows. He begins his first task of the morning, which is the gathering of the lamp black, the fine and silky soot that is settled inside the metal hoods of the lamps overnight. He takes a small, soft brush made of squirrel hair, and he begins to sweep the black powder into a wide clay bowl, moving his hand in a slow and graceful arc. Sweep, gather, lift. Sweep, gather, lift. And the sound is so quiet, it is almost a feeling rather than a noise. The soot is as light as a shadow, falling in silent drifts that look like velvet in the candlelight. And he repeats this motion dozens of times until the bowl is filled with a deep, dark mountain of black. Next, he turns to the drawers where the herbs and the minerals are kept, and he pulls open a drawer made of dark cedar, the smell of dried oak galls spilling out to meet him. takes a handful of the round, hard galls, feeling their bumpy surface and their lightness in his palm, and he lays them out on a clean piece of linen to be sorted. He looks at each one with a slow and patient gaze, picking out the ones that are perfectly dry and dark, and his movements are fluid and calm as he places them into a small wooden box. He gathers a piece of gum arabic, a translucent and amber-colored resin that feels like a smooth stone in his fingers, and he sets it near the hearth to soften just a little in the lingering warmth. He prepares his mixing bowls next, taking a large pitcher of clear spring water that he drew from the well the evening before, and he pours a small amount into a ceramic jar, the liquid making a low, trickling sound that fills the quiet room. The air in the workshop is beginning to warm as the candle burns, and the ink maker stands for a moment, just watching the way the light dances on the ceiling, casting long and wobbling shadows that look like the waving of tall grass in a summer field. He feels the coolness of the morning air on his face and the warmth of his own steady breath, a perfect balance of sensations that makes him feel grounded and safe, anchored in a moment of time that belongs only to him and the quiet preparations of his craft. There is no hurry, no urgency to the dawning day, only the slow transition from the silence of sleep to the silence of work, a transition marked by the weight of the stone and the softness of the soot. He touches the edge of a mixing spoon, the wood feeling warm and familiar, and he finds a quiet joy in the order and the readiness of his tools. The world outside may be waking to its chores, but here in the stone room, the time is measured only by the steady pulse of the candle and the slow, invisible settling of the dust. And he is content to exist in this circle of peace for as long as the work requires, his heart as still as the water in the pitcher. And the soot waits, and the herbs wait, and the morning remains soft and gray. Chapter 2. A quiet, golden light now fills the workshop as the work of the hands truly begins, and the ink maker sits upon his tall wooden stool to start the long and meditative process of grinding the ingredients together. He takes the hard oak galls and places them into a heavy mortar carved from dark granite, feeling the solid weight of the stone pestle as he prepares to crush the dry husks into a fine powder. He begins to move the pestle in a slow, circular motion, pressing down with a firm but gentle pressure that makes a low, rhythmic scratching sound against the stone. Press, swirl, lift. Press, swirl, lift. And he finds himself lost in the sensation, his mind becoming as quiet and clear as the air above the clouds. The galls break apart slowly, releasing an earthy and slightly bitter scent that tells him the ink will be strong and permanent. And he repeats the motion hundreds of times, his body swaying slightly with the rhythm of the stone. pauses for a long minute just to breathe in the aroma, his eyes half closed as he follows the repetitive path of the pestle, feeling the resistance of the minerals and the way they gradually yield to his steady strength. Next, he adds the fine lamp black soot to the mortar, watching as the black powder mixes with the ground herbs, turning the mixture into a deep and solid darkness that seems to drink in the light of the candle. He pours a small amount of the spring water into the bowl, and the sound of the liquid meeting the powder is a soft, wet hiss that signals the birth of the ink. He takes a long wooden spoon and begins to stir the mixture, moving it in slow, wide circles that churn the liquid into a thick and glossy paste. And he can feel the viscosity of the ink through the handle of the spoon. Round and round he goes, his wrist moving in a hypnotic cycle that feels like the swaying of a pendulum or the turning of a great, silent wheel deep beneath the earth. Stir, fold, turn. Stir, fold, turn. And he finds a profound peace in the simplicity of the task. He adds a piece of the softened gum arabic, watching as it dissolves into the black liquid to give it shine and body, and the ink becomes even smoother and more lustrous under his hand. He watches a single bubble rise to the surface and burst with a tiny, silent pop, and he feels a deep sense of connection to the materials, a feeling that he is helping the earth tell its own stories through the colors he creates. The warmth of the workshop is a constant, heavy presence that wraps around his shoulders like a thick wool blanket, making his limbs feel loose and relaxed even as he works. And the only sound in the world is the soft, rhythmic sloshing of the ink and the distant, muffled sound of a bird in the garden. He does not rush the mixing, for the ink must be perfect, and the day is wide and generous. And so he embraces the slowness, letting the repetition wash over him like a gentle tide. He takes a small piece of scrap parchment and dips a quill into the bowl, drawing a single, long line across the surface, just to see how the color holds. And he watches as the wet shine slowly turns to a deep, matte black that looks like velvet in the candlelight. He repeats this for dozens of vials, taking a small glass funnel and placing it into the neck of each bottle. And he begins to pour the finished ink with a slow and steady hand. The liquid makes a low, musical trickling sound as it fills the glass, and he watches the way the dark color catches the reflection of the flame, turning the bottles into small, shimmering jewels of shadow. He places each bottle down on the cedar table with a quiet, final precision, the sound of glass meeting wood being a tiny, muted thud that marks the progress of the morning. He feels a deep and humming peace that radiates out from his chest to his very fingertips as the hours pass in a blur of quiet productivity. And he finds a quiet joy in the order is creating, one slow drop at a time. He watches a small spider spinning a web in the corner of a high shelf, its movements as slow and deliberate as his own. And he feels a kinship with every quiet creature that moves through the world with purpose and grace. As the ink continues to flow and the bottles continue to fill, the air is thick with the scent of the minerals and the wood, a combination that feels like safety and home and ancient wisdom. And as he stirs the last bowl of the day, he feels a profound sense of gratitude for the quiet life he leads, for the soot that colors, and the water that flows, and the silence that listens to the work of his heart. Chapter 3. As the sun begins its long and lazy slide behind the dark forest walls, the light in the stone workshop turns from gold to a deep and warm amber, and the ink maker feels a gentle, sleepy fatigue beginning to settle into his bones. He begins the final, quiet tasks of the evening with a body that feels heavy and pleasantly relaxed, moving through the room one last time to gather his tools and return them to their proper places on the high stone shelves. He cleans his mortar and pestle with a soft scrap of linen and a bit of clear water, wiping away the dark stains of the soot until the granite is bright and gray once more, and he places them carefully in their wooden chest, hearing the small, final click of wood against wood in the quiet room. He gathers the finished ink bottles, the small glass vessels feeling cool and solid in his arms, and he slides them into their protective wooden slots, each one making a soft, muffled sound as it finds its home for the night. He stands for a moment in the center of the room, looking at the empty workbench where the day's labor began, seeing the way the shadows have grown long and soft across the floor. And he feels a sense of completion that is as deep and quiet as the sea. The air is growing cooler now, carrying the scent of the night air and the first hints of the evening mist that rolls in from the valley below. And the ink maker breathes it in with a sense of peace, feeling the weight of the day falling away as the world prepares to sleep. He walks slowly toward the small table where his evening meal is waiting, the light from a single candle looking pale and yellow against the growing gray of the room. And he eats in a state of quiet meditation, his thoughts already beginning to drift toward the softness of his bed. He moves to the candle, extinguishing the flame with a slow and deliberate motion of his fingers, watching the tiny curl of smoke rise into the air and disappear into the darkness, leaving only the silver light of the moon to guide his way back to his chamber. The smell of the extinguished wick is a smoky, nostalgic scent that signals the end of the journey, and he breathes it in with a sense of completion and peace, his body feeling delightfully tired, a warm sensation that starts in his feet and moves all the way up to his shoulders. He undresses with slow and practiced movements, laying his tunic across a wooden stool and feeling the lightness of his body as he steps into the cool, dark space of his bed, where the blankets are waiting for him like a warm embrace. He climbs into the bed, the linen sheets feeling cool and crisp at first, but quickly warming to the heat of his body as he pulls the thick wool blankets up to his chin, tucking them in around his shoulders until he is encased in a cocoon of warmth and safety. He lies there for a moment with his eyes open, looking at the dim outlines of the room, the familiar shapes of the jars and the workbench, and the tall stacks of parchment, all resting in the quiet, dark. His muscles feel loose and heavy, every tension of the day melting away into the soft mattress. And he lets his head sink into the pillow, his thoughts slowing down until they are nothing more than the gentle pulse of his own heartbeat. The silence of the workshop is total, a deep and liquid quiet that fills his ears and his heart. And he knows that the ink is bottled, the tools are still, and the world is exactly as it should be, safe and still under the watch of the moon. He closes his eyes and breathes in the faint scent of charcoal that lingers on his fingers. And as the house settles around him with a final, gentle sigh, he drifts off into a sleep that is as deep and nourishing as the colors he has spent his day blending. He feels the house around him, a sturdy shell of stone and timber, protecting him from the wind and the night. And he sinks further into the softness of the bed, his breath becoming a slow, rhythmic wave that carries him away. The world is far away now, a distant and hazy place that has no power over the stillness of his room. And he is a part of the night, a part of the ink, and a part of the peace that remains when the candle is out. Sleep now. Sleep. Sleep.